this water, raw water from the aquifer, raw water from the dams which are in Matabele South. And the water in Matabele South is all connected to Blaawai, but pumping was not happening at the levels that we needed. And the city council had put an investment program of 78 million US dollars. But when we examined what needed to be done together with the consultants, it was agreed that Chavez, instead of putting another line, there are two lines right now which come from Chavez to Blaawai. Instead of putting a third line, what was needed was to put boosters, and this will cost in the region of 3 million, as opposed to what the city council had proposed. In the case of Incisa, we had believed that we needed to have pumping to uplift the water because it was now 9 meters below the pumping level. But in fact, when the consultants and the engineers finally did their work, they only needed to clean the filters. And once those filters were cleaned, water which they were pumping at 17 megaliters a day has now increased to 41 megaliters a day with just that cleaning of the filters. The third one, in Nyankuni, there is some investment that is needed, but that is something like 300,000 US dollars. So when it comes to Rochester, as the Minister of Labour has already indicated, government had released some funds. I know you are worried about the cost. The drilling of boreholes in the aquifer area is special drilling. We are talking about 90, 100 meters deep, and you are going through levels of the texture of the soil and the rocks until you go into the Kalahari sands. That is the type of drilling that is so specialized, and of course we had to put some money also for having repairing the tanks there as well as the pumping equipment. Eppington needs 1.5 million in order to drill the boreholes that will bring in 10 megaliters a day, and that is the one which we are waiting for more funding to happen. So when the Minister of Finance came, the engineers, led by our Secretary for Local Government, Comrade Churu, had agreed on a program, and that program essentially reduces the amount that government has to put in, together with the city councils and ZEMA, to 5 million US dollars. That is the amount that we now are mobilizing so that we can correct the water situation in Blaawai. But coming back to what is wrong, you have in Luveve, for instance, an old system of piping. Some of the pipes are now 55 years old. There has not been an investment that has taken place which was needed to be renewed the last 20 years. And so some of the pipes are now bursting. But we found out also that there were social issues that we needed to address. People are now having their gardens, and to irrigate their gardens, they are now blocking some of the water, and in some cases actually blocking the sewerage. And it is that sewerage which is now mixing with the water. And so in the last week when I was there, they had 39 burst pipes of sewerage and 9 bursts of water. And this now is what the city and the government is attending. And we have set up, as the chairman has indicated in the statement, teams that are now working full-time so that we can correct it. So put it in a nutshell, the water is there in raw water, the pumping needs to be boosted, and then the reticulation also needs to be attended to.
Thank you very much, Minister July Moyo. I think that was really exhaustive. You explained the situation of water in Blue Whale. Then we'll go to Kudzai Madziri, and his question is directed to the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, Honorable Matema. The Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education have made all preparations. Schools have made adequate masks for using during the examinations. And Madziri's question is, how capacitated is your ministry, or rather government? Isn't this an ambitious goal? Where students will end up, finding their own masks. Minister.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. Yes, we are very capacitated indeed. I thought the question was really something to do with boreholes. We are very capacitated.
Boreholes and PPEs.
Yes, PPEs, yes, we have the PPEs. Schools have produced all the PPEs that we need for the examination centers. And indeed, like the chair was reading in her statement, yesterday we received 10,000 liters of sanitizing hand sanitizers from our universities. We are capacitated in the sense that we have the money. Minister of Finance, for instance, has released $315,082,000 to assist us run the exams that are coming next week. So we're very, very capacitated. And in any case, we also intend the Bowsers will go on standby just in case, because drilling a borehole does not necessarily mean all the time that the water will be available down there. So we're making sure that Bowsers as well will be on standby. Otherwise, we're ready. This money also takes care of thermometers that are required. Disinfection will take place as well. So we're very capacitated, Kudzai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Matema, for that. And last but not least, the question was from Theophilus Chuma, ZBC. It's again directed to you, Minister of Primary and Secondary Education. He says, given the June exams are commencing next week, what's the provision put for their transportation of the learners and those who are coming for the examinations?
Thank you, Comrade Chair. Thank you, Theophilus. Yes, as you all know, the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education is part of the whole government, and therefore we're working with all government departments, and indeed we are just an arm of one central government led by the President. So the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education is working very, very closely with the Minister of Local Government and Public Works, as well as the Minister of Transport. And we have the plans to provide transport for the pupils who will be sitting for the exam. So we're ready for that, and within the next few days we'll be making the announcements as to what routes will be followed, because we have all the names of the candidates, we have the names of all the exam centers. So those plans will be announced shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers, for those answers. I'll go back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, Chair. Second round, as usual, 4 questioners. Any volunteers? Let's say they are yours in your, yeah, okay.
Okay, John Kasim, China Africa, SABC. My question goes to Professor Mavima. It's on the food and water during this lockdown. I understand that prior to the lockdown, the government had programs running already, especially with the food assistance in privileged, underprivileged communities, like the grain distribution in rural communities mostly. What efforts are being put by the government to make sure that while these efforts are there to curb the spread of COVID-19, feed the people who are being affected by COVID-19, the existing programs like the grain program does not get affected? Because recently I was just going about in certain communities like Dombosha. I came across a child who fainted, child-headed family, and my investigation revealed that the family is under the grain program, but there were allegations that for 4 months they had not received grain. Even those within the communities were also saying the same thing. So the worry is now on why would there be discrepancies in certain areas they are receiving, others are not receiving, but the people who are affected mostly are children and women.
Thank you, Chief Sec. My question is on the passport. You said that there is a high demand of passports. The government will release this month to ensure that passports are printed. But during this time of COVID, where there was lockdown and closure, didn't the Home Affairs get time to clear issues of the backlog that was already there? Were they not working? And if so, what progress have they made during this time of the COVID lockdown? And also, I just wanted to find out if the Minister of Health is still in charge of the Ministry of Health and if he attended Cabinet today. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Kuzamansi. My question is going to be to Professor Murira, since Madam Chair said he's standing as the first chair of the COVID-19 ad hoc committee. It's in regard to the survey that's going to be starting on the 29th of June. You mentioned that we're going to be dealing with a sample size of 2,000 households. Taking it from a research perspective, I would want to know, this is quite technical, I would want to know how we arrived at that 2,000 figure. And then, considering that we have 512 confirmed cases of COVID, why couldn't we increase that figure so that we have a result that is a bit conclusive? And I would also want to know why we're having such a small sample size that we're dealing with. Is it a thing of budgetary allocations, or we don't have the technical expertise for us to be dealing with more figures so that we have a result that is a bit broader? Yeah, that's it.
Any volunteer? So we're done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Secretary, and thank you for those questions. John Kasim, SABC, and the question is directed to Professor Mavima. He says there are projects which have been going on prior to the lockdown, especially those of feeding the underprivileged. And what efforts are you making sure that those existing programs, they are not affected by the lockdown? And he gave an example of a family in Domboshawa, and he said he was told they had 4 months there without receiving food. So he wants to know, is there a discrepancy that some areas do receive and some areas don't receive? Minister?
Thank you very much, Chair. We have not stopped at all the program to assist vulnerable families with grains. We didn't stop. It is continuing. And I don't know of any district in the country that has gone for more than a month without receiving grain. There could be a week that goes without grain in a particular GMB depot, but working together with the Ministry of Agriculture and GMB, we always make sure that grain has been replenished at GMB depots that have not do not have grain in a particular week. It will also be interesting for the nation to know that at the peak hunger period, we were feeding almost 7.6 million people, primarily through our food mitigation program that is run by our Department of Social Development, but also with a complementary program run by the WFP, World Food Program, through a number of NGOs that they subcontract. So we have not stopped those programs. You also realize that typically in June and July, we usually stop after the harvest in order to make sure that we have done reassessments. But this year, we deliberately said we were not going to stop the distribution. So the distribution is still going on for June, and it will continue even in July. So these programs, the COVID-19 program has only come to supplement what we already were doing under the food mitigation program. And under the same program, we have a Cash for Cereal program which targets urban areas, and we have 40,000 households that we are feeding under that Cash for Cereal program. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. And Blessed, I just want you to know that government, whilst we close the borders for most traffic, the borders remained open for returning residents. And so this high demand for passports is mostly coming from those in diaspora who may have their passports which have expired and they want to travel back home. That's where the need to make sure that at least the Home Affairs Ministry can actually is funded to enable these people to get their passports so that they can travel back home. Otherwise, Blessed, you wanted to know about, what was your question? I do not have apologies from maybe the Chief Secretary can answer this question. Yeah, I don't have the apologies of who comes and who doesn't attend at this point. Also, whether the Home Affairs have been working on how much progress they've done in terms of clearing the backlog of passports. I do not have the figures, but that's what they've been doing during this lockdown. Since there are no gatherings of people, they have been working on the backlogs, and I do not have the figures, but I'll be happy to get Honorable Kazembe to talk to you on that one. And all applications of passports will be done online. Then I go to the last but not least. This is from Mr. Madziri. Yes, and Professor Murvira is referring to the survey sample size, and it says according to his research perspective. He would like to know how did you arrive at that figure? Why such a small sample? Is it because of budget or constraints, or maybe just don't have enough expertise?
No, thank you very much, Maziri. I think it was a very technical question. By the way, I'm the Vice Chair of the Health Strategy and Infrastructure Subcommittee, not of the task force. of just a subcommittee of health strategy and infrastructure. Thank you for your question. We don't lack expertise. Just to make you comfortable, we have people that know what they are doing. One, the testing which is happening in our quarantine centers and so forth is continual. This is basically a sero-epidemiological survey that is going to be done to the general population. You know, Zimbabwe has an average household size of 5. So if you take 2,000 people, it means within 3 weeks, 2,000 households, it means within 3 weeks you would have covered 10,000 people. So it's a reasonable sample size by any standard, basically. Because when you're assembling, first of all, you want to be efficient You want to be representative, you want to be economic, and you want to derive scientifically valid results from what you are doing. As long as that sampling is random. Remember, we can have a small sample size of a minimum of 5, 10, 20. In actual fact, most people say 30 by rule of scientific thumb is good, but this is 2,000. So it's a very large number, especially when it's randomly taken. So it's not, of course, money is always not enough, but this is not the reason why this is being done. This is a first survey, just to assess within the population how much, because there are people who come for testing. There are some people who come to hospital and then they get tested. But there are people who are out there who might be sick, but they don't know. So if we go around the country and do that survey, we'll be able to get a national picture. Because most of our cases right now, as we speak, are coming from outside of this country. And they are within our quarantine centers. And when you look at it in terms of real statistics, most of our cases are coming from the Republic of South Africa at this moment. So, but we want to see what is happening within our own population, because it is important for strategic and planning reasons. I hope I've allayed your fears of lack of resources as well as lack of scientific expertise, and just assure you that the resources are there and the expertise is there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague ministers. I want to thank the Chief Secretary, Mapemsek, you, and yours.
Did you see the Minister of
Thank you very much. Is this to do with the post-cabinet briefing? Yes. Let's talk about it when we are out there. Thank you. The Chief Secretary.